I am unashamed. What about you?
So we want to welcome a very special guest to Unashamed Nation, Senator Ted Cruz. And Senator Cruz, you've actually, the room we're recording in is right on the edge of our hunting property. You've been here because you actually came on a duck hunt with us back in 2016 when we did. Dad and I endorsed you for president.
I wanted Ted Cruz to be the President of the United States.
You did. Yeah. And so it was great to have you. It's great to have you back.
Well, it was awesome fun. Going on that duck hunt is one of the most fun things I've ever seen. And I tell you, your dad, I still tell people, is the best shot with a shotgun I've ever seen.
No, that's the truth.
Phil, you would take down birds at a distance. I wouldn't even pick up my gun. They were barely specks on the horizon. And it was strong. It was a sight to behold.
Cruz, let's face it, you've been in Washington too long, son. You need to get out in the great outdoors more. So basically, look, who hung, they tell me, I've never been there, who hung the mural of Moses receiving the Ten Commandments? They told me it's on the doors of the Supreme Court and it's hanging above their head. Who put that there?
So you're right. Actually, the image of the Ten Commandments appears 43 times in the courtroom of the Supreme Court.
Wow.
It's carved
I wonder
twice. Why. Well, that's exactly right. It's carved twice on the doorway. So when you're walking out of the court, it appears twice carved into the wooden doorways. It is 40 times on the brass gates along the side. And then up above the justice's left shoulder, there is a frieze that's carved into the wall. When they built the Supreme Court, they put it there. And it's a frieze of great lawgivers. And one of them, he's holding the Ten Commandments. He's looking down on them. The text is legible in Hebrew. And yet, when we went to the Supreme Court defending the Ten Commandments monument in Texas that's on the state capitol grounds, the vote was 5-4. 4 justices were ready to say, tear it down. You can't even acknowledge the Ten Commandments.
Wow. Isn't that crazy?
Is it crazy? The Christian religion, its general principles, must ever be regarded among us as the foundation of civil society. Daniel Webster, U.S. Senator, like yourself, Secretary of State, defender of the Constitution. So how do these people target an individual who would sit on the Supreme Court because of her faith? I'm not... Are we that far gone?
Yeah. Look, the radical left, they hate people of faith, and there's been an assault. As you guys know, I have a new book coming out this week called One Vote Away, How a Single Supreme Court Seat Can Change History. And each chapter talks about a different constitutional liberty. There's one chapter on religious liberty, and it actually talks about the Ten Commandments case we just talked about. There's a chapter on free speech, a chapter on the Second Amendment, a chapter on U.S. sovereignty. And what it does is it tells the inside war stories of what went on. I litigated many of the landmark cases on our fundamental rights, and it tells what's going on with the justices, what's happening, how we got so extreme. And it really started in the 1960s, where left-wing activists started going to the court and using it as a tool to attack religious liberty and to try to erase any mention of God from the public square. And it's the same thing we're seeing in the hostility and the attacks directed at Judge Barrett because she's a practicing Catholic. And for a lot of Democrats, their view is if you are a believer, you are not suitable to be a judge or in public office.
Yeah. Well, I had a question, but what I find is impressive that you wrote this book in 3 days and released it a week later. So I know you must be smart. But
by the way, it's the most timely book release I've ever heard of. I mean, you talk about you were ahead of the curve on this one. That was congratulations.
I wrote that last night. We'll release it in a week. It'll be great. You'll love it. But the question.
That's why he was in the list of the next Supreme Court judges. That's why he was on the list.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
So my question was, though, I mean, I know you're a very intelligent man, but from what I've read, because I know that they're going to attack her during this process.
Yeah.
But I thought that it was against the Constitution to test someone's religious beliefs during the process.
No, Jase, I got an answer for you, son. You need to brush up on the Constitution. No religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. Now, that seems pretty clear to me, Cruz.
It is, and it should be. You're absolutely right. The Constitution explicitly prohibits a religious test. And we saw when Judge Barrett was nominated to the Court of Appeals, we saw Democrats. Dick Durbin, the senator from Illinois, asked if she was an Orthodox Catholic. I'm not sure what that adjective Orthodox is supposed to mean.
Feinstein is saying, dogma's coming out of you. Dogma.
Yep.
That's what she referred to the scriptures as and the Constitution, really.
It's they look down their view. You can have a religion if it doesn't mean much to you. If it's just kind of like a social club, it's okay. But if you actually believe the stuff, that from their view is disqualifying. And unfortunately, they look down on a whole lot of America as a bunch of just ignorant rubes. Yeah. And that condescension you can see in almost every word they say.
Yeah. Well, it's like so I've had the pleasure of hearing your dad speak, and I thought about it. Your dad, Senator Cruz, is a lot like my dad. The dogma speaks loudly in both of them. And I think that's a good thing, clear lines of truth. And so, that's the kind of person, I mean, we've been talking about it. If someone is persecuted because of their faith, that's the kind of person I want on the Supreme Court.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that's the sort of person that understands how important these decisions are, that they're making, which I think is amazing.
Well, and you and I are blessed to have strong fathers who are not shy, will tell us what they think, whether we like it or not. They're going to tell us what they think.
That's right.
And it's to have a father who is bold, who loves God, who speaks the truth. I mean, it's an inspiration for a son. My dad is my hero, and it's one of the fun chances I got a few years back was introducing Phil and my dad because they're both they're both extraordinary men.
I was doing an event the other night. A person came up and said, I want to thank you so much for the podcast. I was like, awesome. We're sharing Jesus. And she said, well, yeah, but you introduced me to Black Rifle Coffee. I just wanted to thank you for that. It's like, whoa.
It's good coffee. I don't know if it's as good as Jesus, though.
But hey, they liked it. It's good.
But you guys, because you guys, I mentioned this last time. Yeah, y'all are very particular about your coffee.
You think?
I mean, that's been a. In fact, the first In the Woods with Phil episode we did was, I think, you drinking, how to make a cup of coffee. So you've been doing this. You've been at this a long time. Black Rifle Coffee Company, one of our sponsors. You guys got to check them out. Get the freshest coffee in America, and you don't even have to leave your couch. So go to blackriflecoffee.com/Phil and use our promo code Phil, and you get 20% off your first purchase. That's 20% off your purchase at blackriflecoffee.com/Phil. Use the promo code Phil.
But tell us, Senator Cruz, to our audience. So your dad was an immigrant, right, from Cuba. Did he come? When did he come? Yeah. Kind of tell a little bit about how that happened and why that has led to you guys doing what you do.
Yeah. So my dad was born in Cuba. He grew up there, and as a kid, he began fighting in the Cuban Revolution. He actually fought alongside Fidel Castro.
Wow.
And he didn't know Castro was a communist. He
Right.
just knew Batista was the dictator, and Batista was corrupt and he was cruel. And my dad, he was 14, 15 years old, started fighting the revolution. And when he was 17, Batista's police caught him, and they threw him in prison, and they tortured him. They broke his nose, they shattered his teeth, they beat him badly in prison. And he fled Cuba in 1957 and came to Texas. Actually, he applied to 3 U.S. universities: University of Miami, LSU, and University of Texas. And UT let him in. That's how I'm a Texan, because that's
you could have been a Cajun if LSU had taken him.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, my parents met in New Orleans, and my mom went to high school in Baton Rouge. So we've got deep Louisiana roots.
That's awesome.
Well, you know.
But when my dad came to America, he couldn't speak English. He had nothing. He had $100 in his underwear, and he got a job washing dishes, making 50 cents an hour.
Wow.
And my dad was not a believer at the time. He told me when he was in jail in Cuba that his thought then is, he said, "Look, I don't have a wife, I don't have kids. It doesn't matter if I live or die." And he lived a pretty hard life, and he partied. And when I was a little kid, he and my mom, they were in the oil and gas business. And when I was 3 years old, my dad left us. And we were up in Calgary. He came back to Texas, to Houston, and he was out partying and drinking and decided he didn't want to be a dad anymore. And a friend of his, a colleague in the oil and gas business, invited him to Clay Road Baptist Church. And he became a Christian.
Wow.
And it turned his life around. And he went and bought an airplane ticket and flew back to get my mom and me. And it's why I was raised in a home with a dad and a mom, is because my father became a Christian, and my mom, not too long after that, became a Christian as well. And so for me, I've seen the redeeming power of salvation in my own family. And today, as you know, my dad is a pastor.
Yep.
He's 81 and travels the country really preaching. In particular, he's got a ministry to other pastors, trying to encourage pastors to speak out and engage on the issues that matter, and don't hide behind the pulpit as too many pastors do.
Well, that story, Al, amazingly, George Washington, the first president of these United States, "You do well to wish to learn our arts and ways of life, and above all, the religion of Jesus Christ," which Cruz's dad found. "These will make you a greater and happier people than you are." This is really going to help you.
Right.
The teachings about Jesus Christ, and there's an example of it right there.
Right, yeah.
We have a U.S. senator who I hope, after Trump wins, I hope he does win. I think he will. After he wins, and we do get Amy on the Supreme Court,
Right.
I hope old Cruz will just slide right in there behind Trump, and we'll rock on.
That would
Cruz,
be nice.
if you decide to run after the next 4 years, you'll be older than you are now. I'll be hitting that 80 mark right along in there somewhere. But I'd like to see old Cruz end up at the helm.
Well, obviously, we respect you so much and the stand you've always taken. And I had no idea that story about your dad. So our stories really mirror you.
Really do.
Yeah.
Because
thinking
Dad,
that.
the same thing. He was converted later, and Jase and I were in a non-Christian home early, and then obviously it turned our life around, and yours. I tell you this, Senator Cruz, I was the night you won Iowa at the beginning back in 2016, you mentioned Dad in your acceptance speech. And it was late, I think maybe 11 o'clock at night. And so I was just sitting there listening to your speech. And I just got so emotional. I hadn't wept over many things. I was just weeping because I thought, looking at you in that point, of course, at that point, we thought you were going to win. Things changed. But in that moment, when you mentioned Dad, I just thought it overwhelmed me because I thought that your humble beginnings, our humble beginnings, and yet here we were talking about influencing a presidential election, like people, what I call salt of the earth people running for the presidency of the United States. And then Dad, you're mentioning him, that he's trying to help you get there. And so it just really was a reminder to me how important it is for all of our audience to be a part of this process, to register to vote, to be engaged, because we've got some, quite frankly, some lunatics running around on the other side.
Yeah, I think it was John Adams, after he looked at the Constitution from James Madison. I think it was Adams who said this Constitution was written for a religious and moral people. It is wholly inadequate for any other. Well, we're living in the days of the any others. You know what I'm saying? And they've stepped up here, and it's a scary thing to me and a sad thing more than it is anything else. It's scary and it's sad. I've got to where I don't call them left-wingers. I just think the soldiers of Satan have lined up against the soldiers of Christ, and we are butting heads right now. And I pray that God will be with us and deliver us from this scourge that's upon us. So we appreciate what you're doing, Cruz. We really do.
Well, thank you. And a word of encouragement. Truth will prevail. It doesn't necessarily prevail in every skirmish, in every battle, but over the long term. And actually, the difference that your family makes, speaking out, being happily, unapologetically Christian, being believers, preaching the gospel, is powerful. And it's, the media doesn't want anyone to see it. The left doesn't want anyone to see it. We're not supposed to exist. We're not supposed to believe what we believe. And one of the things they don't get also, because all of us are fallen people, everything they accuse us of is in fact what they're doing, which is being judgmental, condemning people, hating people, being intolerant. All of us have.
Yeah. By the way, we are converting more people right now at this time frame, would y'all agree, than we ever have.
That's right. Yeah. A lot of people
Something out there, Cruz, because they're coming many miles, and we're baptizing them like they did in the old book of Acts, but they just keep coming from all the states in the United States and all we're doing is pointing them to Jesus. Something's going on out there, Al. Would you agree?
I would agree. And we're all a part of the process. We know you're a busy man. You got things to do. Tell us about your podcast quickly so our audience could check that out, because I've listened to one, and it's really, really good.
So we've got a podcast. It's called Verdict with Ted Cruz, and we launched it during the impeachment trial, right. And it went from non-existent to it actually skyrocketed and became the top podcast in the world during the impeachment trial.
Right.
And so we do it every week. And as you guys know, the podcast format is great because you can actually get into something and talk about it, not in a little, 30-second soundbite, but actually talk about a topic that matters. Yeah. And then the book, you guys were joking about writing it a couple of days. I actually wrote it this spring and summer. So before I was in the Senate, what I did for a living was argue cases in front of the Supreme Court. And so this has really been, fighting for the Constitution and Bill of Rights has been my life passion. And I wrote it because so many of our rights, free speech, religious liberty, the Second Amendment. Look, the Heller case, I represented Texas and 30 other states defending the Second Amendment. There are 4 justices on the Supreme Court who voted to essentially erase the Second Amendment from the Bill of Rights, to conclude that no American has any individual right at all under the Bill of Rights to keep and bear arms. And Joe Biden has said if he gets to appoint justices, he will appoint justices who will provide the 5th vote to erase the Second Amendment from the Bill of Rights. And so what I would encourage the folks listening, the book is One Vote Away. One Vote Away. You can get it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You can get it at the website, onevoteaway.com. And it tells the inside story of what's going on in these cases, who the justices are, why they're voting the way they are, who the litigants are. And you don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to, if you care about free speech or religious liberty or the Bill of Rights, this book explains how many of our liberties are really hanging in the balance.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Senator Cruz, we really appreciate having you. And I tell you, not many people have the credentials to be a senator, to be a president, or to be a Supreme Court justice, and you have them all. And I think that says a lot about you. So thank you for being on Unashamed. We're behind you 100%.
Thank you. God bless you, and keep speaking the truth.
Hey,
Thank you,
thanks.
sister.
Yes, sir.